September 17th, 2024. I'm Bob Cotton. I'm subbing for Pam Walsh, who's in DC today. And I'm going to ask everybody to go around and just introduce yourselves. Starting with you, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Boudwin. I live on Court Street here in Concord.
Hi, Matt Cashman, Director of Facilities.
Jay Burgess, Public Property Superintendent for the City of Concord.
Nicole Fox, Building Committee member, parent of 3 students, civil engineer.
Keith Kelly with Harvey Construction.
Holly Miller with HMFH Architects. Tina Stanislawski with HMFH Architects.
Rick Brewster on Building Committee, live on Badger Street.
Kate Bond, member of the Building Committee, live on Mountain Road, and I'm also a parent.
Linda O'Rourke, 8th grade language arts teacher at Runlet Middle School.
I'm Terry Wolf, Director of Communication for the district.
Kathleen Murphy, Superintendent.
Jack Dunn, Business Administrator.
Brenda Hastings, School Board.
I would just note that Brenda's not a member of the building committee, but she's sitting in as a member of the school board. With that, I think we'll turn it over to Holly and Tina to give us an update on the timeline and where we are for the project.
Put this into full mode here. So just to remind everybody sort of where we are on the timeline.
Yeah,
Oh,
just make
I'm
sure you're
sorry.
speaking into it.
So just to touch base on the timeline, we are now about in the middle of the design development phase. We are scheduled to finish design development by the end of the year. And some of the next steps in November, we will be submitting to the planning board to hopefully get on the schedule for the December planning board hearing. We have a hearing in December. We have been today, I spent the day over in the middle school meeting with faculty, staff, and we'll be back there tomorrow meeting with faculty and staff and students. So we've gotten a lot of input, which we'll be implementing. We have been revising the design actually let me finish with the timeline here. So after the design development drawings are completed at the end of the year in January, Harvey will do another estimate and we'll see where we are with the budget. And then we'll move into construction documents. The goal is to finish construction documents by, I think, November of 2025 and start construction in January of 2026. The state budget will get approved in, July, I think, of 25, and the building aid will be awarded no later, I think, than December of 2025.
Okay.
This would put the school opening for the 28-29 academic year.
Okay, anybody have any questions on the timeline? I think it's basically the same as we've seen
It is,
before.
yeah. I just kind of wanted to remind everybody where we are right now and where we're going.
All right. So, continuing, I ask you guys again to update us on what you've been doing with the design process and auditoriums,
Yep.
et cetera.
Okay. So at the end of the schematic design phase, when the project budget was set, there were some decisions made about the auditorium. So the decision was made to go with a 450-seat auditorium, and I'm just going to skip over the site plans right now. I think the site hasn't really changed, but these are really here more for reference. The decision was made to go with a 450-seat auditorium, and we were also asked to reduce the overall gross square footage by 6,000 square feet. And I'm happy to say that we have hit that target reduction. So our gross square footage is now, I think, 203,800 gross square feet, roughly in that ballpark. So that is a 10,000 gross square feet reduction, 10,000 gross square feet reduction. So that includes some smaller auditorium and taking out 6,000 square feet, kind of by making the building a little bit more efficient. We were able to do that without taking out a lot of program space. I think the only thing that we did eliminate was we had changing rooms originally on both levels of the building. We had changing rooms on the first floor and changing rooms for the gym on the second floor. We now only have one set of changing rooms. We do still have 2 elevators in the building, and we do have a ramp that connects levels 1 and level 2. Which actually, it was interesting today, the athletic team really likes that idea of the ramp for moving some of their mats up and down in the building. So I hadn't even thought of that as a potential use. So I thought I would walk through the plan revisions with you. I think everything has stayed in generally the same space in the building. So we still have in green as you enter the building. This is sort of the administration wing. You know, with a secure entry vestibule and a transaction window. So this will be very secure entry sequence that is sort of monitored by the administrative offices that all face onto that entry courtyard. Let's see. So this is the 450 seat flexible theater, and we'll go into a little more detail about the flexible theater. We have a couple of other slides. We have some 3D views to show you what the theater is looking like. But the theater is accessed off the main street here. There are some additional entrances so you can get into the theater from this upper left-hand corner. All of these seats here in the center are movable seats, so they are retractable. So these seats can retract back into the wall, and I'll show you some pictures of that coming up. And these seats here in the front are movable chairs, and we have some chair storage rooms. So you could clear out all of these seats and have a big space with a flat floor. So there is no raised stage in here, but we did meet with, we met with the music group, we met with PEG, we met with Clint Black from the high school, and they've all seen this flexible theater. I think they are excited about the possibilities here. Music actually likes the flat floor in the space because it allows them to put a bigger group. They said that they actually have a hard time fitting the whole band on the stage, even at the Capitol Center. So actually, the ability to kind of make the stage bigger or smaller in this space was really attractive. Gave them a little more room to work with. We will have, some catwalks and lighting positions, and the ability to have drops for performances in the space. Anything else about the theater?
Questions on that space?
Questions?
I have a question. Will they still have a curtain or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you make sure
know
you talk into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking if they would still have a curtain for the
Why
level
don't I
stage.
jump ahead to the 3D view, because I think that's really the best way to explain the theater space. So this is a 3-dimensional view of the theater. So this is kind of a section perspective. So you can see these are all of the flexible seats here. So these seats all retract back up into this kind of cavity back here. There is a fixed balcony that has 2 rows of seats in it, so those are always there. And then these are kind of the movable seats at the front. But you will have a series of curtains that will create like a proscenium. They'll create that frame that you normally have in a theater. So those can be sort of, they'll give you a lot of flexibility. You can see here sort of the catwalk for the lighting position. And they'll be able to have hang drops, so they'll be able to hang some backdrops in the space.
And will the window be able to be fully blacked out?
Yes, yeah, we will have blackout shades on the window. That'll have a track, so you won't get any light in that space.
In the back corner, by the balcony is the sound room. Where's
So this is a control room,
Yeah.
so you have a control room. And then there is also some storage on the ground floor for the loose seats that you would use in that space. When we met with the PEG group, one of their big needs was for some storage kind of back of house. So one of the changes we did make to the floor plan was we originally had some changing rooms. Go back here. Kind of behind the stage.
Just on that point, could you explain what PEG is?
Yeah, Performance Ensemble Group, is that
Yep,
right?
that's
Thank
correct.
Right, so this is the group that on the plays.
Yeah. There you go.
So basically, the stage can be accessed from two locations, kind of behind the scenes. So I know one of the issues with the current multipurpose room is that there's no real back of house. So you have, this whole sort of music wing can be used as a back of house performance space. And you have a door here that shuts the space off from the main corridor. So people coming in for a performance aren't gonna see what's going on back of house. We originally had 2 dressing rooms back here, but after meeting with the PEG group, oops. Uh-oh, sorry, guys.
It's hard to maneuver without the mouse.
No, I do have my mouse in my bag tonight, but I haven't taken it out yet. Let's see. Going back again. Sorry. It's Control Plus, right?
That's hard to do when you're in presentation.
Yes, I'm gonna grab my mouse, that'll be easier.
While we're waiting, I will just note for the record that Mr. Richards from the school board has joined us as well.
Why is it not zooming in?
I zoomed out of like presentation mode so that you can like just use these things.
So we originally had, back of house, we had some dressing rooms, but after meeting with the PEG group and with the music group, they thought it would be more useful to have a large storage room for costumes and for kind of sets. So they have a lot of materials that they store, and they can use the music spaces as changing rooms when they have a performance. And then there are some staff toilet rooms kind of back of house and some student toilet rooms back of house. So they felt like they had adequate support behind the stage with this change.
Any questions? Okay.
So we can talk about some of the other changes that we've made. Just use on my
in there. Yeah, if you want to zoom out.
There we go, okay. So we've also made some revisions to the typical team pod area. We've made the science classrooms a little bit larger than they had been previously. We were having trouble kind of fitting in the number of sections that the science department wanted in each classroom and getting enough sinks in there. So the science classrooms have become a little bit larger, and we've moved the science classroom kind of to this inside corner of the pod. So now the sort of the 3 typical classrooms all face south. The science classroom is on this inside corner, but still has a big south-facing window, and this space has to have 2 means of egress. So that was one of the other challenges with the science room in the corner. So we did not meet with any of the we didn't meet with any of the grade level teachers today. We met with a lot of specialists. So tomorrow we'll be meeting with the teachers and we'll get some feedback on these revised team pod layouts. Let's see. Okay, so any questions about the team pods?
So one of the questions that's come across my desk is spaces for our multi-language learners.
Yes.
Can you identify that?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. So, the space for multi-language learners is on the middle floor. The idea was that, you have students coming from all grades, so it seemed like a good location for the multi-language there. So the multi-language learner space is on the second floor, right off the main street, so it's, oh gosh, sorry. Went up a little too far. This is the multi-language learner space here. This is actually a pretty big space. It's about a classroom and a half. And what we're showing in there are kind of multiple clusters, because I know that tutors work with, small groups of students or one-on-one. So they need space where they can have some sort of acoustical privacy, but all be kind of in the same room. So we're showing kind of, low bookshelves or partitions that can, create some acoustical privacy for students and for the tutors.
But we also said that the flex rooms that are in the pod areas can also be used for that. Is that correct? So the kids don't have to go to that area necessarily,
Correct.
but they could have time right in their own pod and meet with a tutor or, whatever, whomever they would meet with, because they meet with other folks, so.
Right, so these two rooms
okay.
in the team pods, the idea is that, services come to students and
That's right.
students don't need to
Right.
travel if they need any kind of support. So we have a small group room, and then we also have a flexible instruction room. So this room is big enough for about 8 to 10 kids, and this is, kind of four students working with the teacher at the most in the small group.
We also recognized that it was important for kids, our multi-language learners, especially some of our kids that are new to our city, right? And their families, and they need time to process, and they often need time with the social worker, or somebody from Accentria comes and works with our youngsters during the week, and will often connect families, student, and school, and they need a safe place where they can talk. And so we wanted to make sure that they had that large room that can be for discussion, as well as the small flex rooms for their instruction, so that they're part of a team and they feel part of their team. I think that kind of covers it. Brenda, we talked about that, didn't we?
We did. And that's why I was
Does
glad
that-
to see the flex rooms and the small space in the middle, because we didn't want students necessarily having to leave their pods.
Right. And we even talked about that today too, with like
Good.
Title I tutors could come to the students in the team pod.
Right.
Holly, can I ask, the flex rooms, do they have windows out to the larger area?
These rooms here?
Yeah.
They do.
Okay.
So they have, if I can zoom in here even a little bit more, you can see. We do have, do you know that, I could bring up the 3D images. We have some 3D images, actually, they're not in the presentation, but I could share them with you. I have them on my desktop. We started to do a couple of, three-dimensional views of what those team areas would look like. This is not a finished design, so this is still a work in progress, so. I can pull this up. I'm trying. There we go. So this is that team pod area. So these are the two kind of flexible classroom, these flexible spaces. This is a smaller one. The larger one is over here. You can't kind of see it very well. But these rooms would have kind of shade, so you can pull them down and have some visual privacy if you need that. Or it's also a space where you could send a kid to work on a project and teachers in the team pod could supervise them.
That's why I asked about the
Yeah,
windows.
so there are windows, so we know there are benefits to having a lot of transparency, but there are some challenges too. So we want to be able to provide some visual privacy when it's needed, or when you don't want a student to be distracted.
And the locker banks there,
Yep,
how, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, all the lockers are in the team pods.
Okay,
So your team, a team will have their locker in their team pod.
okay.
So we've got some double height lockers along the perimeter, and then there's some low lockers kind of around the perimeter. But we have another view looking back the other way, so you can see what it looks like when you're looking in the other direction. The idea is that each 4 core classrooms that are in the pod all have visibility to this team project area. And then there are lockers on the other side of this sort of low wall here. thoughts or questions. Like I said, these weren't really ready for prime time yet, but we're just starting to look at the space, but.
I'm not sure I like the yellow.
I was gonna say, don't get caught up in the colors.
Yeah.
It's like what the computer spit out.
We started with blue, but the blue on the screen was looking almost black, and it looked very dark and grim. So we went with yellow for now, but like I said, that's why we were hesitant to share these tonight.
Natural wood.
And isn't it lovely as a professional that at this stage, in your industry, you actually have easy to use software that can prepare 3D visuals for us?
It is.
Much more engaging than this.
Yeah. I know.
So
And
can I,
we'll be showing you more 3D views as we start to develop the design.
And some walkthroughs
Jim, you
too.
had a question?
yeah, I just wanted to ask about the cross corridors. Are they wide enough, those ones that are going over the open space below? They just look thin.
I think they're 8 feet wide, but we've actually talked about making, especially this central one, wider, because when you have all these people kind of coming up for an event outside of the gym too, we think it might be nice to have this one in the middle be wider, because this is where people are probably gonna gather and collect, so.
Good, I'm glad. That's the one I was most concerned at. It looks pretty narrow for a lot of kids at the same time going.
Right, yeah, we think it's a good idea to make that one a little wider too.
Okay,
Okay, so-
other questions?
Excuse me?
No, I was just asking if anybody had any other questions.
So I will share with you a little bit of the feedback that we started to get today from some faculty and staff at the school. The first thing really is about PE. So we met with the PE and the health team, and when we eliminated one set of locker rooms or changing rooms, we eliminated the ones that were on the second floor. And the PE staff feels pretty strongly that they would like to have the changing rooms or team rooms on the second floor adjacent to the large gym. So we think that that's possible. We'll basically just kind of swap a few
Switch
things
it.
around and move the team rooms back up to the second floor if everybody thinks that's a reasonable approach. But they would like both offices and the changing rooms kind of adjacent to the large gym.
What would you move to make that space?
We would move probably some of those toilet rooms. We might have to push the gym back out to the west a little bit, but we think we can kind of move a few things around. We've got some extra toilet rooms on this level that might move down to the lower level. So we have a lot of toilet rooms in this core area to satisfy the assembly requirements of the gym and the theater. So we can, people can go down one story to use a bathroom, so. Especially if people are coming in from the main level, they might have to go back down to the main level to a bathroom. Although we'll still have some up on the second floor. I think the other request from PE is they really would like some storage out near the fields for things like goals and equipment, so they don't, it's a little bit challenging to move all of that equipment. They're also a little bit concerned about the, toilet access from the fields, although we do have some toilet rooms on the ground floor adjacent to the kind of the doors that lead out to the field. So we've got some large toilet rooms here on the ground floor, and we're assuming people heading out to the fields will come out through these doors here and head to the, to the northeast to the fields. Let's see. I think the other big change is we've moved kind of the robotics makerspace up to the third floor. So that's sort of where the greenhouse had been originally that we did eliminate from the program. So the robotics makerspace is now up on the third floor. Sorry.
Holly, we talked earlier about the robotics program and the STEM room and the proximity of some of those programs to each other. Did that come up today when
It
you
did come up
met with the
today.
teachers?
And I know there was some concern, I know some of the exploratory teachers kind of wanted to all be together
Right.
originally.
Yeah.
World language, I think they were interested in kind of being clustered together originally. But when we talked with World Language today and showed them that they're all kind of centrally located right off that main street, I think they really liked that idea and embraced that approach. So for the World Language teachers, that didn't seem to be much of an issue. We haven't met with all of the other kind of exploratory, like woodshop, robotics teachers. I think we're meeting with them tomorrow. I know that came up today from some of the other faculty and staff, that some of these programs were dispersed through the building. But I think we explained why those spaces are located where they are, and some of the adjacencies that we thought worked really well. Like we talked to the art team about the adjacents to this kind of robotics maker space. So these are the art classrooms up on the 3rd floor, and then this is the robotics maker space. And we have this kind of open floor area between the two spaces, which could be used by both robotics and by art. So it could be a gallery space, it can be a space where the robotics teams brings their robots out to have, to test them. So we think this kind of open, flexible space that kind of unites art and robotics had some really interesting kind of possibilities and some synergies there. Moving down to the ground floor, I think everyone was excited about this food tech space. I know, we had a couple thoughts about, I know there were some suggestions about moving this up to the 2nd floor so it was closer to the health classroom and to the gymnasium. But right now, this food tech space has kind of a big movable partition that opens up into the cafeteria. So you can use this food tech program, this food tech classroom for so many different things. You can do team spaghetti dinners where you kind of flow out into the cafeteria. It could be used as kind of a concession stand for plays or big events in the building. So there are a lot of possibilities for that food tech, and I think locating it on the 1st floor makes it much more flexible. Also, 21C could use that space after school, so they were excited about it. So I think everyone we talked to today was excited about this food tech space. And we have the kind of wood shop on the ground floor here. And locating that next to robotics, I know some people wanted to see the wood shop and robotics adjacent to one another, but the wood shop really needs to go on the ground floor. This would also give them outdoor access to a work yard. We could create a secure work yard outside for wood shop here, which might be a nice opportunity. The other thing is, we wanted all of these kind of exploratories to be visible off the main street. So a kid may not be taking that session, but they can see what's going on and get excited by it. So all of those spaces are visible from the main street. So the wood shop, the maker space, and then that kind of robotics space.
Excuse me, does the wood shop have an area where they could get trucks in and out to empty or pick up deliveries? Because, they're gonna have a dust collection system, which hopefully be outside, actually.
Yeah.
And so the noise is outside, but the dust is outside, and then they can come in and service and empty the dust collection system on a regular basis. So is there a driveway close to that, or access, or
So we do have
parking
a-
lot
we have
so
a-
they can get into that?
You can't really see, it's a little light here, but the wood shop is over here.
Right.
We do have a fire access loop road that goes all around the
Okay.
building. And we kind of are showing right now kind of a large garage door at the wood shop that could open up
Cool.
if they want to kind of take their work outside.
Or bring in sheets
Or
of
bring in
plywood,
wood,
or
yeah.
what, lumber?
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, that's the other reason why the wood shop's on the 1st floor. Okay, so we also last week, we had a meeting with the district sort of technology team, and Jack, if you could remind me of the names of who we met with, but we started talking about teaching technology in the classrooms a little bit and talking about kind of the infrastructure for the building. So that was a really good preliminary meeting, and we will get into more detail as the design develops. And Also, the technology is constantly changing, so some of those decisions are really best made closer to when you're ready to build. Because new technology is coming out every day. But we started that process, and I think we had a good first conversation.
We did. We tried to make sure all the systems talk among the other schools now, and the type of door systems that we have, the camera systems, what we potentially have them look like. And especially when you get into the teaching classrooms, we have everything from the elementary that have TVs, interactive TVs, to the original Eno boards, to now at the high school we have interactive projectors that can sense your hand movement as long as that is on a nice flat board. And what we talked about doing was being able to set some of these newer projectors. We have a few extra, setting them up at, we're going to work with Jay and setting them up at Runlet so they can test it. But, 3 years away is a long time in technology. So they can at least have a flavor of what it is. And we'll see as we get closer what finally that technology should be. But that meeting was a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
So.
I'm happy to test that out, by the way.
Let's volunteer.
Okay.
Come to the meeting.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me, Linda.
So this is a 3D view of the team pod. So these are kind of the three kind of standard classrooms. All of the classrooms would be identical, so they would have the same kind of technology, storage, whiteboards, whatever technology is chosen. This is actually showing a touch screen in between kind of two whiteboards, and then there would be a second wall with whiteboards on it in each classroom to give teachers some flexibility, and then a storage wall kind of adjacent to kind of the entry door. This is the science classroom, and the idea with the science classroom is that you wouldn't have, it's a flexible room, so it could be set up for kind of a teacher-led instruction, and then those tables in the center there can move to the perimeter of the room and be anchored to casework that's fixed along the perimeter that has your sinks, your plumbing, and your electrical. So the idea is that's a kind of flexible room that has kind of a teaching wall here and a teaching wall also on the south wall here. So the teacher could teach on either wall, and then they could break up into kind of smaller lab groups and do experiments and project-based learning. Any questions about the team pods? Looks good. There's also, breakout space here, so, a big whiteboard out in the project area where kids can come out and work together in small groups or even large groups with some flexible furniture that can be configured in multiple ways. And I think we're back at the theater. So as I mentioned, we're at 450 seats. So we've got 300 retractable seats, or about 120 in the balcony, and then you'd have about another 30 loose chairs to get to the 450 seats.
Can you show some of the, thank you.
Show the setups.
Yeah.
Maybe go
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah, we'll go backwards, and this is the seat that we're looking at. So it's, I think that the seat that's in the current NAR is like a molded plastic seat. So we are looking at an upholstered seat, so it should be a comfortable seat, but still give you some flexibility. And just sort of going back, these are the kind of multiple configurations that you could use in that multipurpose theater. So you can have a kind of more traditional theater setup. You could have kind of a theater in the round setup. You could use this for dance performances or even wrestling meets, if you wanted to, right? You could have 120 people up in the balcony, and you could have a wrestling meet on the floor of the multipurpose theater. But we do also have the 5,000 square foot multipurpose room that has 100 teachers in it. So I think you have a lot of options.
You may have just said it and it just went over my head, but How many seats are in the gym, like the bleachers?
We have 900 seats in the bleachers in the gym, and you could have 300 people on the floor of the gym. So you could have a total of 1,200 people in the gym. So if you wanted to do like a moving on ceremony, you could have students in the center. We have done a layout for that. I didn't include that in the presentation tonight, but you could have 300 seats in the center of the gym. The bleachers pulled all the way out and have 900 people on the bleachers, so you could have 1,200 people in the gymnasium. And the bleachers can pull out in two different stops. So you might not pull the bleachers out all the way for a basketball game, you know, a smaller basketball game or something. But when the bleachers pull all the way out, you can have 900. Back to that. So here you can see the bleachers are retracted, but when they come all the way out to 900 seats, I think they come up about to here. What's that?
Can you zoom in a little?
Yeah. So the bleachers come out to about here when they get pulled out all the way. I think we've hit on all of the big changes that we've made since the end of schematic design. Is there anything
Has anything happened with the outside fields? Have you done anything with the outside
Yes, we
fields?
have, and the one thing that we did do is we're pulling the two, the baseball and softball fields a little further apart so you can get another soccer field in there. That is not shown in this 3D view that we have right now, but I can describe it, and
Can you
we'll be
put it up for us
receiving an
to see?
updated plan from our landscape architect any day now, so let me see.
Okay. You know, it's important. I was at a meeting today, and Scott, the AD over at Runlet, tells me I was referring to the 6 soccer teams over at Runlet this season. And he stopped me and said, "Excuse me, but it's now 7." I mean, and they're not just 10 kids on the team. He's filling teams of 25 or 20 to 25. The kids are really enthusiastic about being engaged in a team activity. And so I just, that kind of triggered me to say, because I hadn't even talked to you about this yet, but it triggered me to think, what do our fields look like? Am I going to be able to get all of our kids in? You know, I don't know what that 7th team is made up, whether it's a combination team, whether it's a unified team, whether it's a boy or girl. I don't know
It's
that.
boys.
Is it?
It's boys.
It's another boys team?
They have 4 boys teams this fall and 3 girls teams.
And they're playing on Saturday, by the way. Their games are on Saturday, so they're not even, I mean, they're practicing during the week and their games are on Saturday. So these kids are making a commitment to the field. So it triggered me, Holly, to say to you, what does that look like again? So you separated it out. I see what you did. Yep.
So you'd be able to stripe kind of on a diagonal a third soccer field here. So you could have 3 games going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
Or field hockey or lacrosse.
Right. Well, they're not in the same season, but yeah.
Field hockey is fall.
It's field hockey.
Yeah.
Right, field hockey and lacrosse aren't the same season, but you would have field hockey and soccer.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Correct, right. So you would have 3 fields that, you could have soccer going on 2 and you could have field hockey going on a third.
That's great.
And these are all grass, right now?
They are all grass.
Okay.
So can I ask, so looking from the inside to the outside, the kids how far do they have to walk from where they'd be changing to where they are going to get on a field? Looks like they have to walk to the end of the wooded area and turn around or go over there.
It might be easier.
So just consider that, and then the other thing is space, and it looks like there's space on the outside of the cafeteria area, of the eating area, so that kids could go immediately outside. Because that's what kids do. They finish eating and they go right outside. And so I'd want to make it as convenient and as, you know, and it looks fine. It would be at the opposite end of that, where from the parking lot, where they'd be coming out, right?
Yeah, so this is the
Not
entry
there.
courtyard here.
Yeah, so if you were all the way over on the left, which is where the changing rooms are, where do they come? They come out that door?
Yep, so we have a
and go
door right
across.
here in this courtyard, and they would come across. We did talk about this with athletics today. This is, we were just kind of showing, keeping some of
Space,
the
buffer.
existing trees in here. But we can create kind of a path through
Okay.
these trees and a line of sight, and I think that is important. So, you know, we're not sure how many trees we're gonna be able to save in this area too, but the goal was to try to save as many trees
Mhm.
around the perimeter of the site as possible. So, you know, we'd like to, you know, but we can definitely create kind of a view corridor from that door to the fields.
Yeah, just something to keep in mind as you plan.
Yep.
Well, in regards to recess, I'm glad you brought that up. Is there any consideration for something like a natural playground?
There is.
Oh, great.
There is, and that's at the, I think it's the next meeting.
Okay.
So we have sort of mapped out what we're gonna talk about for every meeting in the design development stage. So I think at the next building committee meeting, we were gonna talk about site and the outside of the building.
Okay.
So we're gonna have our landscape architects come, they are working on a really beautiful plan. They are incorporating some kind of natural play spaces into the design. So you'll see that at the next meeting.
If you don't know what a natural playground is, basically it takes nature but gives kids something to do. So there might be like a series of stumps that you have to hop to, or it might have some kind of like stadium type seating, but it makes it less little kid-like. It's a little bit more appropriate for middle schoolers, but still gives them something to do instead of just standing around. So Bo did one and it was beautiful.
And that's something we've really heard from the students when we met with them too. They said, you know, we've got this courtyard to stand in for recess. There's like nothing to do. So they really wanted something to do. That's also where the basketball courts came from here. I know kids really wanted to use these basketball courts. Yeah, we could actually move those. That's a good idea too. Just saying we could move these courts over here.
Injuries. I think that the site distance, as you referred to with all the trees, is important discussion. Gotta know that. I mean, if, as a former principal, I wanted to be able to see what was going on all around, and, you know, I just think that's important when we think about this, when we have the landscape person, that I have good vision, the teachers have good vision for wherever they're looking. Because when they're doing duties, or they're out in the playground, or they're even in the hallway, their job is not just to stand there. Their job is to always be moving and looking. And I think that we have to pay attention to that in this drawing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, I think Tina just had an interesting idea too. Maybe those basketball courts move kind of from here over to here, so they're a little closer to the
And now you
school for
open it up a
recess.
little bit. That's what I'm thinking about.
And then you know, we can leave some more trees in this
Yeah.
area and open up this area a
Yeah.
little bit more, so.
Just that strip of trees though will help with, the shade will help with keeping the areas cool. Trees
true.
are good for both wildlife and air conditioning, so if, just a balance, I'm not saying it shouldn't, you have to have a sight line.
Right.
But you can thin it too. You
Yeah.
can still have them and thin,
Yeah.
you know, thin it out a little bit. I think that might help.
The goal has always been to maintain sort of as many trees around the site as possible, you know. Clusters sort of in here, kind of around the parking, everywhere we can. And there will be trees in the parking areas too. So we'll, you know, have some new trees that are gonna be planted in those parking areas that will provide some shade over the pavement.
I think one other thing, going back to the technology, we also did put in the plan to make sure that we do have internet access out of these fields as well. Okay?
A quick question, thoughts on perimeter fencing, where might that land?
So So we do have a budget for perimeter fencing. I think we're gonna need to meet with the abutters to find out, where the fencing is gonna go. One of the issues with, I know that the abutters on North Curtisville Road wanted a fence on the side of the property, but then that would restrict access to the trailhead that comes off the end of North Curtisville Road. So we do have money in the budget for fencing, and, we wanna talk with the abutters about where that fencing is going to be, so.
When we were out there at, you could see the homes out there, Jack and I were out, and where they wanted the fence, but the problem was that that's where there's the signage, right? And it's the maps of the area and all that on a display. And so if you, by putting in a fence, you'd be cutting off access to all of that. So we've got to
Also,
figure out
put
how
in
to
a
do that.
fence on the property line, you'd have to cut down trees to do that. So, it's a little challenging.
Yeah.
We have a really good buffer between the abutting properties here. I wanna say we're 180 feet or something from the closest property line, so the idea is we wanna maintain a good green buffer between the abutters and the school all along the perimeter.
I think one of the concerns that they had was parents may perhaps want to find an alternative place to drop the kids off that isn't so traffic or congested.
Yeah.
And that they would go down North Curtisville, drop them there, and then the kids would sneak through the woods, right, to get to their school. And I think that was a concern for them because that would add more traffic for those families. So we have to figure out a way to somehow deal with that.
So I think, one of the big differences about this site is we have a very long driveway into the site. Oops. So you're not gonna have the issues you have at Runlet where traffic backs up onto the roadways, right? We have this very long driveway where many cars can queue. We have a big, long drop-off area. So I don't think you're gonna have the congestion and the backup that you have at Runlet. We're really able to separate kind of the traffic flow too. We've got buses coming in from the east. So buses are very separate from parent pickup, drop-off, and you can access the parking too without kind of having a conflict with the buses. So we've got, we calculated the number of cars that can queue along this driveway here, and it's quite a few cars. I don't remember that off the top of my head. We have a diagram in one of the earlier presentations. But you can queue a lot of cars, and I think cars are gonna move through here very quickly. So you're not gonna have, I don't think parents are gonna be looking for alternative routes to avoid the traffic.
As a parent who does not drive their child to school unless absolutely necessary, I will say that when you're waiting in that queue for all the kids are incredibly slow getting out of those cars. I strongly suspect that really long, straight driveway is gonna have a lot of antsy parents in it. I don't know what the alternative is for that, but I do think if they start to feel trapped by that long driveway, they'll seek alternatives. So just to.
Go ahead.
Nicole, I think though, what will happen at the actual drop-off spot is that probably 3 or 4 cars will be able to drop off and there'll be a smoother flow, if that's how it looks.
Yeah, and I would go more for like 12 to 15 cars could be dropping off at the same time.
Or whatever the number is, yeah.
That's what will break the queue is the ability to drop off all the way around the curve there instead of just one little spot and have it, like as much of that space that is all around there that you can have pull in, pull out it back in. That'll be the way you have to do it because you don't want a queue. If there's a queue out onto that long straight road, then alternatives will be sought.
Right, but there's a lot more drop off here, and there's a sidewalk all the way around that road. So
Well, I want you to look not only at sidewalk, but, that there's a pull-in lane where you can drop somebody off and someone can drive
It
by.
is wide enough to bypass.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the key, is that I'm pulling past the people dropping off and pulling into a space, dropping my kids off, and then getting back out in that line and getting
24 feet
around.
wide.
Yes,
If
yeah.
the travel
Yeah.
lane is 12 feet,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that will be
Yeah,
the
that,
thing.
that road
And,
is,
you know,
20 to.
I think you gotta have a lot.
Gotta
I
have.
think you're
Plus
absolutely
the
right.
sidewalk.
Plus the sidewalk, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've
Bummer
met,
is all the plowing for that long driveway in the winter time, not that we get enough snow anymore, but.
Bite your tongue.
I've met with a group of abutters,
Yeah.
and walked the property with them, and I know one of the concerns they have is the driveway in. It's been described as a two-lane road with sidewalks, and that it would take about 50 feet at that point to do that. So if you can do anything to give us more accurate distances for the two lanes plus the sidewalk, I think it could go a long way. Having walked it with the abutters, and seeing the woods, it's very hard to envision how that driveway will not be right up on property lines and/or taking some of the field space from broken ground.
Right now, I think there's about a 30-foot green buffer between the road and the property line.
And we're going to walk that in a week or so I think it'll be really helpful for us to see that ourselves. But, you know, it looks very different in reality than it necessarily does up on the screen.
Something to know that the lane widths on Interstate 93 are 12 feet wide. So if you've got a 24-foot lane, you've got certainly enough for somebody to pull over. And they only need about 8 feet, and you've still got 12 feet for people to go.
Right, and the more information we can get out there for people, I think the fewer problems we'll have in the long run, or concerns, I guess is a better way to say
We
it.
can have the landscape architects do a detailed drawing of that for their presentation that shows the cars, you know, bypassing each other and the pedestrians and then the trees and the property line. So you can kind of get
That
a
would be
visual.
great, thank you.
And one thing I would ask is for consideration of students riding bicycles. And they should not be riding on sidewalks, so they should have they could have a sidewalk height bike facility that's separated from the sidewalk, but, you know, otherwise some space separated from cars where they can still access the school.
Actually,
Yeah.
a bike lane or something of some sort, because there is no way they're going to get off and walk their bikes. They don't even do it now, and it's not that long of a distance.
And with that long driveway, they're
Right,
never
yeah,
gonna do it.
they're gonna ride that sidewalk.
So what we had talked about was sort of an extra wide kind of shared path that would be for pedestrians and for bicycles. We could do a separate bike lane, but that was one approach that we had discussed. And I know that the city sidewalk master plan does have some kind of shared path scenarios in the pedestrian master plan. So we were looking at that as kind of an approach, that we make an extra wide path that is shared for bikes and pedestrians.
That could work. What kind of width are you looking at?
I think it was 10 feet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would think for middle schoolers, you'd want to have like 10 to 12 minimum, just
Yeah.
because they clump when they walk and when they ride.
We can have the landscape architects bring something to the next presentation and kind of diagram how that would look.
Yeah, that's the way a lot of universities do it
Yeah.
Right.
as
But,
well.
Yeah, I think 10 to 12 feet is what we were talking about. We were talking about this at a meeting last week, so there.
Is that driveway just two 12-foot lanes so that's in and out, plus wide enough to pull off so that you can drop off too?
This section up here becomes one way, and it is wide enough that a car can pull off and another car can bypass. So from this point on, it's one way.
I can't,
She's talking
I'm
about from
sorry.
right here. From here around is one
It's one way.
way with a pull off, and then this is two ways here, this roadway.
So that shouldn't be a drop-off area.
On the road, no. People
No.
shouldn't be
Not there.
dropping off here.
No, people shouldn't be dropping off there. The
Just-
drop off would
just
start where
here.
it becomes
Okay.
one way.
Yeah, once you get to the parking lot.
We'll have better drawings for you at the next presentation. These are really hard to see.
Yeah.
You have to use your
But it gives
imagination
us an
here.
idea about what you're
Yeah.
thinking, and
Yeah.
if you come in with the landscape, that would
Yep.
be helpful.
Who is the civil engineer?
Novus.
Novus.
No,
Yeah.
Okay, other questions or maybe we'll move on, as long as we were talking about a site walk. We've got one planned, and Superintendent, you want to?
Well, we planned a site walk on September 28th, and we'd love the building committee to join us. It is a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, so for those of you that have some free time, join us. And the board asked that we make this arrangement, so we'll meet there and do a tour of the site, give you a chance to really feel it when you're on the site. I know that a lot of us have already walked it, so it's really important that you see it. And you might get a lot of questions like, why is there a pink ribbon? Why is there a red ribbon? Why is, tied on trees? And, and people get really concerned about that. So we'll be able to take a few minutes to explain that to the board as well as to anyone on the committee that might need to know that information.
The plan would be that it'll only be an hour, so.
Yeah, we won't take a lot.
11 to 12, probably.
Can I have an address? I'm new enough to Concord that I need to be told where this is.
So
We should send out parking information.
we'll send out parking
Okay.
information to everybody, but it's right on South Curtisville Road. You stay right on that road past
Okay.
Millbrook and Broken Ground, and on your left-hand side, you'll see like a little entranceway.
you're probably gonna propose that they park in the Millbrook lot.
And
That
then
would be-
just
that would
walk
be my
over.
choosing.
All right,
Yeah, we'll just
all
walk
right.
over.
We can't
50
do
feet
that,
curve.
it's not a lot of, yeah. Just, let's go to the Millbrook parking lot. Park there and we'll walk into the
Will you
site.
have Novus at the site, by any chance, at the same time? So
Park
they
at
can
Millbrook?
explain anything or what they've done?
Market
At
Millbrook.
Millbrook, okay.
Well, I'll see. It's extra money, but that's okay. Let me talk to Tim.
Never hurts to have the engineer there.
I know. Okay.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions about the site visit?
Is that time and a half on Saturdays for the engineer? Just asking.
Engineers are exempt, so they don't get paid time and a half.
They don't, huh? You
Nope.
sure? All right.
We can give them lunch.
Okay, we'll make a bag lunch. Good idea, Jim.
Can I just ask one question? Overall, how was the feedback that you received at the middle school today?
It was great. I would say that all of the teachers were very excited, and, they have told us how desperately they need a new school. So, we hear about all of the issues that they have currently, roof leaks and broken doors and, just the challenges. I think they're so excited about the new space. I think the feedback we got today was more sort of detail oriented, maybe visibility from this art classroom to this art classroom, maybe a little more storage here. But I think overall people were really excited.
And
they think
I
it's,
appreciate you were just giving us the tweaks they wanted to make, but I think it's helpful to understand the sort of the big
Yeah.
picture of where people are on things.
and I think everyone was very, very thankful that we were there talking to them. We had Jay scheduled, this sort of 2-day, I don't think I have it with me, but, 2 full days of meetings. But there are also a lot of open time periods where anybody can drop in and talk to us. So we have had people just kind of drop in and share their thoughts with us. So the more people who come see us tomorrow, the better, because, we like hearing from everybody, and they're all very appreciative and excited.
Good.
So I think the next thing on the agenda is just a little discussion on the petition articles. I think, is anybody not aware of what's going on with those? And I'll turn it over to the superintendent, but I will just mention that there is a group that has presented enough signatures to allow the two changes to the charter to be proposed. It will be appearing on the November election. We had a hearing, a week ago at the high school. Some of you may have attended that, and had a number of citizens, I'd say probably about 190 or 100 people probably there to discuss those two petitions. The first one, broadly speaking, says that it requires a majority vote of the voting people in the Concord School District to change to relocate a school from its existing location. The second one would require the same majority vote of voting people in the Concord School District to sell or transfer any school property greater than an acre. I will tell you that the school board voted unanimously at that meeting, number one, that those petitions will be on the November election, and number two, that we are opposed to both of them. So, Superintendent, you want to say some more about that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, Bob. Thank you. Those petitions have now been formatted and being sent in the ballot for the November election. This is at the November election. It's interesting because in order for a change in the charter, you need a 3/5 vote. So those two amendments have to pass by 60% of the folks that go to vote at the November election. So that's a high threshold. But we'll see. It was interesting at the meeting around the amendments, around the petitions, in that we had about over 30 people came to the microphone to speak, which was great, and I'm glad to see that happen. A lot of new voices and a lot of new faces, and there was very clear message from those in attendance and those who came to speak, probably 2 to 1, that were opposed to the petition.
Actually, I kept a count, and it was 16 to 10. I think.
Yeah.
But,
I had 20. I had 21 to 11, but that's
Something
okay.
I kept a count, it was 21 to 11.
I did
so
too.
it's close.
That was my count.
I must have fallen asleep halfway
Yeah.
through.
I was
I didn't
told
count
21 to
Nicole's
11.
comment.
Yeah. I got 21-11, but that's okay. And then we did have some letters that we received. One letter was read into the minutes of the meeting as requested from those folks. So that it's become on the ballot. It's going to require 60% of the vote, and at election day, which is a big day in November. So we'll see how that works. We've also had we've completed the sign-up process for school board. That ended Monday afternoon at 4:00, and we have 6 folks who have signed up to run for the board. There are 3 open seats on the board, and those are all positions at large, if you will. They could be anywhere in the community. So again, that will be a busy ballot for the school district on a very busy day, I might add, since it is a national election, right? So it'll be a long night. I don't know if there's anything else that we can add. I mean, it certainly, as a superintendent, I am concerned because this is a city, and all of our cities, school boards do this kind of work. There is some cities go to the city council to present their budget, but Concord is autonomous, as you know, and the city council hasn't been involved in those decisions around the school district, but that was a decision made through the charter. But in cities, you don't see people voting on articles. It's difficult, it's difficult to get the word out and to explain it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
One thing I would just add, which I mentioned at the meeting last week, is whether or not, if these charter amendments were to pass, and specifically the one about relocating the school, there's a question as to whether it's retroactive or not, because our vote was on December 6th of last year, and so passing a charter amendment almost a year later when we've already spent quite a bit of money. Raises some potential legal issues that would have to be looked at least, I think. So, and, see where that goes.
But we're also, just so you know, we are working, we're not, sitting back and hoping for the best. We are working on what does it mean if we are forced to if the decision of the board is causes the board to have to move the building back to Runlet, right? Because they voted to move it to Broken Ground. That's where it stands. So the decision would be to move it back to Runlet. And so we're doing an analysis with Keith's help and our architects and Jack, because we've kept track of all of the funds that we've spent and what would it mean in terms of the project, the timeline, and of course state aid is always a player in that, because we would not be ready to accept the money when we originally had said. So there's a lot of factors. We're putting that all together. We intend to get that information out so people understand that side of this problem.
Lisa?
Two quick questions, I hope. First one is, did Concord Community TV get a link that we could watch? Because I tried to stream and it was wonky and not watchable. So do we know if...
Yes, I have a link for that.
Great.
Yep.
Follow-up question around the school aid. Some estimates are that with the end of the dividends and interest tax, that's a $180 billion gap in the state funding. Is that going to impact building aid, or are you all tracking that? And what, there's anticipated to be a huge budget gap this year going for the next biennium. So are you all monitoring that?
At this point, we're not. I mean, we know that we're going into the budget season. That's when the legislature will begin to deal with
Sure.
budget. I think you know
Right.
that. So we're both ready to provide the testimony necessary to support funding. I actually had an opportunity on Friday to speak with a commissioner at a public meeting of superintendents, asking for his support of building aid, and that it was critically important, given that there are, I guess we can take away two. There are 15 schools on the list, that was originally 17. 2 schools did get money this year, asking him to support, as a commissioner, to support our all of our schools, not just Concord. And I wasn't speaking just for Concord, but speaking for my colleagues who have application in for building aid. Again, I didn't get a straight answer. He wasn't sure that was going to happen. So again, we're going to watch it, Lisa. I don't know the impact of that change in dividends and dividends, right? It was
Dividends and interest.
interest, right?
It's-
So we'll keep an eye on that, Lisa. I'll have to follow up on that.
I would note for people who don't know, we're second on the list right now, behind Colebrook.
Yep.
And Colebrook has rejected it twice in their community by a vote. They do a vote. I think, is it town meeting or SB2? I'm not sure which one they use in Colebrook. SB2 is when you go to the ballot box. Town meeting is when you go to a meeting and you raise your hand, yay or nay, right? They have rejected it twice, but because of the change in building aid rules, that is eliminated. They're back at number one. They don't lose any, because usually it was 3 times you reject it and you're done. You come off the list. But with the change in the rules that was done at the Department of Ed, they get that 3-year grace again. So we don't know what Colebrook will do. Their project is very small, though, very small. It's I think it's a renovation project, and so it was small money. And again, we don't even know what that money's going to look like. How much is left in the tail. how much do they still owe on a bond that they did in 2008 to help school building aid, and then what revenues will they put forward. I know that one of our legislators from Concord, Wallner, right? Senator Representative Wallner? Representative Wallner put forth a bill for asking them to put in $100 million for both years of the biennium. Right now it's $50 million. She proposed 100. It was defeated, but I understand it's back as an LSR. So we may see that appear again, and we will be there to share our thoughts. So I have to say that Rick tonight suggested we need to get out, we need to do some face-to-face, and not in a hearing, not in a formal hearing, but presentations. And I think Rick's suggestion is we're about ready to do that, to get out into the public, face-to-face, and share. And I would hope that some of the folks on our committee will join us as we set those meetings up. I think people just need a little bit more information, and you know, we've spent a lot of time looking and analyzing the costs associated with this project, and we haven't had a chance to really get out there and share the way it would look over time as it relates to the cost of the project, the bond, and what's the bond look like. We have our fingers crossed as the feds are reducing interest rates. Well, that will be a very positive thing for us. We went to the bond market just last week, and Jack, you got, what was the bond rate?
3.3.
3.3, which was very good. So we're paying attention, but I would concur with Rick that we need to get out and we need to talk. And honestly, they want to hear your voices too, not just my voice, the superintendent. With all due respect, even Jack and our school board, I think they want to hear from the folks that served on this committee, because you folks really have an understanding of it now. You've seen all of the details, and so I'm going to set some meetings up, and I hope you'll consider joining us and speaking on behalf of the work that you've done over the course of time. That's all I have to say, Mr. Cotton.
All right. Anybody
Probably too
else
much.
have any other business that they want to bring up?
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
No, Mr. Cotton, the only, I served on the last charter commission, which was 2 years ago, and I just think, you know, it's important, in that time, that committee, we met weekly for months and months and months in this room, and not one person came from the community, came before that charter commission and asked to in any way limit or reduce the autonomy of the school district. And this is, you know, a reaction to a decision that was made. It was not, it's not something that's been a groundswell for years, that's been, you know, something people want. It is my belief on that, having sat through those meetings and had heard nothing of this sort during that process.
Thank you. Other thoughts, questions, topics? No? All righty.
Thank you.
I'm going to move we adjourn. Anybody object?
So we'll second you do it.
Good job.
We're adjourned. Thank you.